G'day, it's Natasha here from Medix. Just going to go through today a couple of things. One is how to clean out a trough, and I think the water supply to stock is one of the most overlooked production factors on the farm. And if you're going to clean out your troughs, it is hard work, and I guess where you want to go is kind of ahead of the cows, so that basically every day the cows are coming into a paddock. If you can only manage a couple a day, then they will have a clean water source. So the reason to clean out a trough, of course, is this is where the cows are drinking from. And one of the things that, you know, the average New Zealand herd, 415 cows, if you were to share a glass with 415 of your friends at lunchtime, it would probably look a bit disgusting after the first lunchtime, let alone consecutive lunchtimes. And what we tend to find is that people don't realise how quickly the water quality in the trough is deteriorating, and it's a huge overlooked production factor in the equation of what we're trying to do, which is produce milk, which of course is more than 90% water. So if we provide our cows with clean water, then we're also reducing the risk to them of what they might ingest from their herd mates, and also from everything that comes and lands in the trough. If we have a look on the sides of this trough, we can clearly see there's some bird poo. So there's been, you know, ducks, goodness knows what, sparrows. We've found dead rabbits in troughs before, and these are all vectors that bring things to the farm. Like we know birds spread the bird flu over the entire world, and you know, Yonis is actually a bacteria that is also found in water sources like this and could be a factor in transmission. So keeping that water clean is going to help us with our production, and it's going to pay a big dividend for us. I know it's hard work, and that's why I decided, at the request of a farmer, to share how we clean troughs and how you could do it on your farm too. So what's important is to maybe think of where you're going to go. Cleaning ahead of the cows, if you're limited for time, ahead of the cows is always going to be great. And of course we don't want all of the water on the farm running at the same time, because we'll never fill up our troughs again. So what we recommend as well is, with the ball cock here, where you're going to be refilling the trough, that we're going to tie that up, so for the duration of what we're going to do, that we haven't got water running, and that we're also able to let the trough dry out, so that anything that comes along, sunshine and things, is going to kill everything, and you're not going to have ducks and things landing in it. You just need to remember to, of course, check the water before you let the cows back in. So by tying up this ball cock, you can do it with a bungee cord. I'm just using a little bit of rope today. That's just going to keep us from refilling the trough all the time. We might want to run some water in a bit later on, but for now we're going to be basically going through emptying the first. Right, the next step is kind of the hard work. If you've got a pump, using a pump's always a great way to empty a trough. But if you haven't got a pump, you can use a bucket and some hard off work. What we've done is just taken a 20-litre bucket, cut the end off, and that gives us a nice square surface when we get down to the bottom. But if you want to come and have a look what's in the trough, we've got all kinds of things. Like, so cows, they're pretty good at backwash. They don't always empty their mouth when they come. And as we get down, it's going to get worse. We can see here there's some sort of slimy stuff on the sides, and we'll scrub that off as we go. If we take a look, if you are using a pump, something to watch out for is if you're just going to empty the water, where the intake for the pump is, you're going to suck all kinds of grass and perhaps leaves and solids up there, and if you're using one of those kind of trash pumps, it can wrap around the impeller and block it. So having some sort of sieve or something over the end is a good idea. But as you're emptying as well, what you want to make sure is that you do scrub some of this green stuff off as you're going around. As you can see, it's not that easy to scrub off. It's actually quite sticky. So this is something that the sunshine and a bit of chlorine after you're finished can really help with. So as the trough's emptying out, we do want to kind of go around and scrub this off. You don't want to leave it there and then fill the trough back up, because you're not actually cleaning much at all. But I'll just show you as well with some water. As we've started emptying, you can see water in the trough. And this is, okay, if you think your troughs on your farm are really clean, like, go and have a proper look, because I reckon they probably won't be. So the water in the bucket is actually not that clean. And as we stir it up down the bottom, it's going to be basically pure evil. And this is not, you know, because this is a bad farm or anything like that. This is really regular, and these troughs can become like this just after 6 months. So we're going to talk about ways afterwards of keeping them clean, and what you can do to sort of make sure they stay clean. move this. It's sort of easier to do below the water line than it is above it. So as you can see, the difference between here, what's below the water line, and at most troughs they'd be a lot worse than this too. As you can see, the lower down we get, the more evil this water becomes. So what started off as being not too bad from the top, you can see there, really quite revolting. Certainly not something I'd be drinking. It's pretty gross. So obviously these sort of impurities are becoming more concentrated as we get to the bottom. This trough actually doesn't have a lot of sediment in it, but if you've got a creek that's feeding your troughs, you'll have a lot more slime and stuff like that. So like I'm standing in the trough now, just be careful if you are, because the bottom can be really slippery depending on what you've got in your water. You can see, just for contrast, this area here around the ballcock where there's quite a lot of slime that we haven't cleaned off, just so we can show you the difference. If you haven't got time to clean the slime off, you can spray it with some C3, some chlorine based bleach kind of type stuff, and then just leave it tied up to dry out, and it will kill all of that for you. But if you don't use a chlorine based product or something like that, then what will happen is that all those seeds and things, especially if it's from a creek, the little algae things will not actually be got rid of at all. So they will eventually die in the sun, but if there's concrete that's deteriorated, so a lot of troughs are a lot older than this one, where there's a lot of pores and cracks and things, and those seeds will just come right back. So we'll talk about that at the end as well, about what we can do to keep the troughs clean once we've gone to the effort of cleaning them. So what we're talking about here is, if you think this looks like a ridiculous amount of hard work, we're talking about taking things to the next level. So not average, we're talking about performance. And as you can see, like we're going to look at the bottom of the trough here. This is Mandy and Peter Patterson's farm in Karitonga. They're organic farmers, but what we can see here is that the trough actually, now that I've drained the water, isn't actually too bad, which is quite remarkable. So it tells us that they've cleaned their troughs before. But there's a whole lot of livestock in here too. I don't know if you can even see. There's like tiny little red worms. You know, I don't know if these are parasites or not. Do you see that one there? On the end, or there's like
yes,
Ward boatman, there's little red, that little red worm there, thrashing around on the bottom.
Ooh.
So they lay cocoons on the bottom. I'm not sure if they're parasites or not, but anyway, these things are all better off out than in, I reckon. So once we get down to a certain level, this is where our square bucket that we had before is really good for just getting around the edges there and just getting that last bit out as much as we can, because it's much easier to sort of bail it out. And then when we get down to the next level, the end nearly, we're going to use this shower scraper and this pan, and we can pretty effectively get the rest of it out. So you want to sort of do what you can with your bucket, and then we're going to use this to get the rest of that stuff out. Might use our brush on the bottom to give it a bit of a scrub if it's a bit slimy. Make sure we get all that stuff out. And all that, you know, once we leave this tied up, all the worms and stuff like that, they're going to like die. This is going to dry out. So obviously we can have a pretty nice situation for the girls when they come back in. We're down and we're pretty much cleaned out. If we look over here, most troughs have got a means to tie them up and stop the water flow. So you can see here there's this wee hook, so we can hook that up there. That'll give us an opportunity to clean behind it. But of course this is right at the bottom of the trough, not up here, so we don't have the opportunity to deploy this when the trough is full, unless we want to put our arm in it. Now depending on what you've done with your trough or how clean or dirty it is, you might not want to put your arm in the water. And something that I would say is, if you're like these guys here obviously don't irrigate effluent over their troughs, like you need to be really careful. Cover your troughs. If you're irrigating effluent, I don't know how many of you guys like to eat, you know, a cup that somebody's pooed in, eat out of a cup or drink out of a cup that somebody's pooed in. Not very nice. So there's a lot of diseases spread with manure, and we definitely don't want to be irrigating effluent over our troughs once we've cleaned them, that's for sure. So we're just going to give this a little bit of a scrub, and then once we go into the scrub, what I can do is let some of this water in, this wee bit, and I can flick it around the sides, and that's going to be my way of rinsing off the sides without refilling the trough too much. So if you think I'm getting too carried away, like I said, you don't need to scrub every single tiny speck of green off, but what you do want to do is make it basically clean, and then you can spray the rest with some probably 30% C3 or something on those lines, like a say a 12-13% bleach product, and dilute that about a third. Put it in your sprayer, give it a quick spray around here. So once it's cleaned out, the next trick is, how do you keep it clean? So the key things to remember: number one, once we've cleaned it, even if our water source is from a creek, which is going to have kind of green things in it from time to time, if we spray the sides with chlorine, we're going to kill some of those algal seeds and little plants and stuff that like to grow in the trough. Second thing, don't irrigate effluent. This is really important. Don't put effluent irrigators in the same paddock as your trough. Just get a cover. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, we don't have it anywhere near the trough, and then, you know, the wind changes direction and next thing it is in the trough. So that's the second thing about keeping them clean. And the third thing is, get yourself some FIL farm claw trough tablets. Now these are chlorine, that's drinking water standard, that you can put into these troughs, just 4 or 5 at a time. Put them in when the cows go out, and that will keep the water clean, so it will stop algal bloom. So algal bloom needs nutrient to thrive, so it needs the water, needs the light, so as it gets more summertime you're likely to get more problems. And as well, if you're putting things like sugar in your water, like at times of the year when we want to put zinc into the cows, like don't put sugar through the water, because sugar and you know, bacteria, they just go hand in hand, so you're probably actually inviting a whole lot of stuff that you didn't really want in your trough. So they're the sort of keys to keeping it clean. Get some farm claw. You can go down to your farm source or your farmlands, and they've got that as an SKU there, pretty easy to get over the counter, and that's just something you can put in. Some people put copper sulfate in the trough. I really don't recommend that. Copper is obviously a mineral. It does impart a flavour into the water, a taste. Yes, it's very good algicide, but also, you know, if you're going to go adjusting your cows' minerals, remember they're drinking that too. We don't want to sort of end up with introducing something into their diet in a balance that shouldn't have to be there. So just be careful as to what you put in. But the farm claw won't, 5 or 6 little sort of thumbnail size tablets will not impart a flavour into the water. We'll keep that level, just like having tap water basically. The reason municipalities chlorinate water into towns is because that's actually the biggest breakthrough ever in human health. So no matter what you think of chlorine, it does a very effective job at killing bacteria, very effective at killing algae. So to keep a water source clean, it's a great way to do it. And of course, this is a product that will break down in sunlight, so just the sun will break it down. It's not a swimming pool chlorine that persists even with the sun. So you're basically only adding it in when the trough is refilling, and when you actually manually add it in. So it's a very good way to keep things tickety-boo. So once you've done it, if you were to do nothing, and let's say you don't use any chlorine in your water, and we've done studies on this trough will deteriorate. Basically, a 30-day round with 400 cows, basically the third time they come in this paddock, this trough will look like you probably haven't cleaned it, which is quite disheartening when you put so much effort. So by putting the chlorine in, we find that a year later the water is still clear and clean. We don't have that algae and stuff in there. So that's the benefit there, that you'll get by not irrigating your effluent and by just putting a few briquettes every time the cows are in here, okay? You can use a wee, you know, sieve if you really want to fish out bits of grass and stuff like that, which they always, you know, they eat with their mouths full, so they leave that stuff behind. So just remember, once you've gone to the effort of cleaning them, it doesn't take much to keep on top of them once you're sort of in that happy space, and then you can keep them really clean for a long time. So thanks for watching. Like us on Facebook, and remember, farmmedics.com. Thanks for listening. Something interesting here, the trough is a bit of a hive of activity. So around the trough you can see where we've bailed the water out, there's a bit of standing water, which is fine, but like this is not puggy or deep or anything like that, but you have to remember that the cows need to access the trough. So if you've got an area around your trough that's really, some of them, like, you know, if the trough's been leaking or something like that, you can end up with basically, you know, mud over your gumboot. The cows won't go near it. If the ground's really uneven or it's really unpleasant for them to get to drink, if it's swampy or anything like that. So do check if your troughs are leaking, get on top of it, because while from the race it might not look that bad, when you actually come and stand here And I guess you guys are always checking the function, making sure the water is running in and all that sort of stuff. Like, check it, because if you can't stand here in your gumboots, the cows won't go to here to have a drink. And it's so key to their production. If they can't drink, you're going to get less milk. So the easier you make it for them to access, this is a great size. The water recovery, obviously, if they're drinking that water down, you don't want to have them, if you're finding that you get a lot of, for example, trough arms smashed off and things like that, the reason they're smashing them off is because they're drinking the trough down so that it's empty. So rather than put something spiky so that they can't smash it off, better solution is to have more availability, better recovery. If you can't afford better lines, maybe set up a temporary trough in paddocks where you know there's demand, or really hot times of the year. You can get great little things to hook up and set up basically a temporary trough next to the one you've got, and that can be done a day ahead. So you're not putting the pressure on the water of where they are at the moment. So just some things to think about. The recovery, this is a good size 1200 litre trough, pretty standard now. But if anyone's got any of those little 65 litre ones, then that's definitely a way you can help yourself, because if there's not enough water for the cows, they're waiting a long time before they get that liquid, especially in the heat. Thanks guys.